Welcome to your Foundations Unit 5 Study Guide, Objective 3. We're going to start with question number 9. Okay, we're in the special cases situation. It's not really any different than what you would normally do, but we'll work through it. Okay, the first thing you always want to try is the GCF. Is there anything that will go into 1 and 16? Just one. Do they both have a letter? No, they don't. Okay? So there is no GCF you can take out. The next thing you should notice is that you have a binomial. That means that there are two terms. Okay? Anytime there's two terms, you need to look for a situation where you are subtracting perfect squares. Perfect squares are numbers that you can get by doing something like 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, etc. Okay? And then you're also looking for even powers. Okay? Even powers of exponents means that they're perfect squares. Okay? So, looking at this, we have an even exponent of 2, and basically you just use half of it. This becomes x times x, right? Half of 2 is 1. There's 1 and 1 here. Okay? And what numbers that are the same multiply to give me 16? Well, if you look, 4 times 4 is 16. So this breaks down into 4 times 4. Notice how we have subtraction. You gotta have subtraction. If there's no subtraction, then it won't factor like this. Okay? So now, you notice that you have perfect squares, you have subtraction, okay? So you're going to write two parentheses, and then you're going to split everything up. Or just put half of the x's in here and half of the x's in here. So half of 2 is 1, so you put 1x here, and you put 1x there. Okay? And you're going to, anything that's to the left of the sign will stay to the left side of your new parentheses. So we're done with the left side. There's always going to be a plus and always going to be a minus. Order doesn't matter. You could go minus plus or plus minus. It doesn't matter as long as you have one of them plus and one of them minus. Okay? Now we're going to do the right side. And anything that's over here, you're just going to split it up on both sides. So 16 became 4 times 4. So you put a 4 over here and a 4 over there. That's your final answer. That's it. That's all you do. So, binomials, recap. First, always take out a GCF. Every question that you factor, ever, always try to take a GCF first. Okay? Then, with binomials, two terms, one thing on one side of a sign and the other side of a sign. Make sure it's subtraction, and then you're looking for perfect squares and even powers. Okay? So we look over here at number 10. We look for a GCF first. This has a 1, which means there's not going to be a number one, and then they don't both have letters, so you can't take out a GCF. So we have a binomial. If you have a binomial and there's no GCF, odds are you're probably going to be subtracting perfect squares. Okay? We look for an even power. Well, 4 is an even number. And then 81 is 9 times 9. That should be an easy perfect square for you to know. So now, what will break down x to the 4th? Well, over here I told you, try to think of it as half of the exponent. This became 1 and 1. So this is going to become x squared times x squared. Okay? Basically half of it. So we have our new parentheses. On the left side of the sign, we just split it up, x squared and x squared. We have nothing else over here, so we put a plus and we put a minus, and then the right side of the parentheses became 9 times 9, and that's our two factors. Okay, and you think, okay, I'm done. But you always want to check your binomials to see if you have perfect squares and even powers. Here I didn't really mention it. 4 is a perfect square, but do we have an even exponent on x? Well, technically x is a 1, and 1 is an odd number. So that's why we didn't go any further. But you look over here, you have a 2 and a 2. That's an even number, and 9 is also a perfect square. Okay? So now I ask you, will this one be able to break down like we did for the two things here and the two things here? No, because it has a plus. You cannot factor using difference of squares or subtracting squares because we have an addition sign. There is no rule for this. This is actually called prime, which means it won't factor. Okay? However, we do have a subtraction here, an even power, and a perfect square, which means we can do what we just did one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down my x squared plus 9 because it won't factor. And then this one will break down into two more factors. Okay? So what's half of x squared, or what's half of the square? 1. So you put 1x right there. Okay? We have nothing else on this side of the sign, so I'm going to put my plus and I'm going to put my minus. And then 9 breaks down into 3 times 3, so I'm going to put a 3 here and a 3 there, and this becomes my final answer. Because we do have binomials, but the one with subtraction doesn't have an even power, so we can't go any further. Okay? Question number 11. Now we gave you a little hint here. Take out a GCF first. Well, I've been telling you that for the last 10 questions. Okay? So you always want to attempt to take out a GCF first. So is there anything that goes into 16, 36, and 10? Okay, well 10 is only 2 times 5 and 1 times 10. Okay? Well, you know 10 doesn't go in everything because they don't end in zeros. 1 obviously goes in everything. 5 won't go into these because they end in 6s, and 5s can only end in 5s or zeros. So then it must mean there's a 2 in there, and since they're all even, then 2 does. So we're going to divide all the numbers by 2. Do they all have a letter? Nope. So we can't take out a letter. Okay? So we're going to take out the 2. And remember that the GCF is a 2, and it's going to go down wherever we have our answer down here at the bottom. So that's the GCF. And I'm assuming that I'm going to write my answer this low. Okay? So 16 divided by 2 is 8, and then we didn't take out a letter, so the x squared comes down. 36 divided by 2 is positive 18, okay? And the x will come down, and negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5, okay? So we have a trinomial, which means we need to try the x games, okay? A times c goes on the top, b goes on the bottom, so we have to do 8 times negative 5, and you get negative 40, okay? And then the positive 18 will come down to the bottom, okay? And so we have a negative, which means that we will have different signs right here, okay? Because different signs you subtract, and so we need to subtract the numbers that multiply to 40 to get an 18, okay? So we got to think, okay, well 40 is 1 times 40, and that's 40 minus 1, which is 39. Well, that's not going to work. We have 2 times 20, and so we do 20 minus 2, which is 18. Oh, well, there it is. We don't even have to go further than that. Okay? And you could try other ones. 4 times 10, okay? And so you do 10 minus 4, which is 6. That won't work. And then 5 and 8, okay? And then you do 8 minus 5, which is 3. Okay, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, you're back to 8 again. Okay, and so really the only one that works is 2 and 20. So now, which one is the negative and which one is the positive? Well, since we have a positive 18, the bigger number needs to be positive. That's 20, and the 2 needs to be negative. And you can see that over here. To get a positive 18, positive 20, minus 2. 20 minus 2. Okay? So now, again, if you like the box method, we'll do the box. If you like the other method, I don't really have a name for it, just skip past where I do the box. So this is where we need to do the box. Why do we need to do the box? Because we have this number in the front. So I'm going to draw my box. Okay. First, your A term, then your C term goes here. Okay. I'm going to take my -2 and my +20. I get -2x. I get +20x. Okay. And then I'm going to factor out a GCF. So GCF going this way, GCF going that way. 8 and 20 have a 4 in common, and x squared and x have an x in common. If you're struggling with GCFs on this, don't forget to use the Math Right 9. Math Right 9. Okay? And then 2 and 5 just have a 1 in common. They don't both have an x, and then we'll take this sign. Okay? And so this becomes 4x minus 1. Okay? And then we're going to try to go up, and then 8 and 2 have a 2 in common. They do both have an x, so you take an x. 20 and 5 have a 5 in common. They don't both have an x, and this is positive, so that's positive. Double check. 4 times 2 is 8. X times x is x squared. 2 times -1 is -2, and then there's just 1x. 4 times 5 is 20, and then there's just 1x. 5 times -1, -5, so it works. Okay? And so you get your other factor of 2x plus 5. And so that becomes the final answer. Okay? So if you like the box method, you need to move on to question number 12. If you don't like the box method, you want to see the other method, just hang out for a minute. Okay. So say that we don't like the box. No box. Okay? We've taken the GCF out. Okay? The GCF was 2. Okay? So you got to put that. Then you're going to write some parentheses. Okay? You're going to put the first number of A and then X for both of them. So this was our A, 8. Okay? And then you're going to put your -2. And then you're going to put your +20. Okay? So now you're going to look for GCFs. What will go into 8 and go into 2? Well, a 2 will. So you'll divide them both by 2. Okay? And so you get 4x and then -1. That comes down. Don't forget about that GCF of 2. And then what goes into 8 and goes into 20? Okay? Well, that's a 4. So you're going to divide both of them by 4. So you get a 2x here, and then you get a +5. Okay? Are there any questions? You'll notice that you get the same exact thing that we got there when we did the box. So it doesn't matter which method you choose. Okay? Alright, so looking at question number 12, the first thing you want to do is always take out a GCF. Okay? Well, what goes into 8 and goes into 18? Well, 8 has 1, 2, 4, and 8 in it. 8 will not go into 18, so it's out. 4 doesn't go into 18, so that must mean just a 2 does. Okay? So we divide everything by 2. Okay? And don't forget to put it down. I'll just put it out to the side over here. Okay? And then they don't both have a letter, so you can't take out a letter. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Bring down the x squared. And then 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then bring the minus down. Okay? So now, it's a binomial, so you need to check for the even power and the perfect squares. So do we have even power? Yes. Do we have subtraction? That's another thing. It needs to be subtraction. Okay? Do we have subtraction? Yes, we do. Do we have perfect squares? Well, what will give me 4? Well, that's 2 times 2. What will give me 9? 3 times 3. So then, yes, they are perfect squares. So that means we have to break this down. So I'm going to bring down my 2. And then what will multiply to give me that? It's 2 times 2, and then do half of the number of x's, so you got x here and x here. Okay, so we've taken care of everything on this side. So now we're at our sign, so you put a plus, put a minus, and what gives us 9? The 3 times the 3. And that becomes the final answer. This concludes Objective 3 for your study guide. So please move forward to Objective 4, and you're almost done.